Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flow Over Fear podcast, where it is our mission to help you to rise above fear and realize your ultimate potential in leadership and life. I'm your host, Adam Hill, and it is my goal to share with you the human side of high performance. My guests share their experience with fear, anxiety, struggle, challenge, and most importantly, despite all of it, how they rose above it to achieve incredible results. So, if you're ready to rise up, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this recap episode of Flow Over Fear. I am your host, Adam Hill, and I'm going to be talking about the interview I just had with Charlie Stevenson. And it was a really good one, guys. I really enjoyed this one. I've known Charlie for a couple of years now through a program that we're both, through a group that we're both a part of called Go Abundance. And he's an incredible guy. He's an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. He started 4 businesses. He's an adventurer, and he's also had his fair share of experience with anxiety and depression. His anxiety started at a very young age when he moved away from his first childhood home to a home in Spokane, Washington, and that was a home he thought was in China at first. But if for those of you listening, Spokane is not in China. Though I could realize how thinking that you're going to move to China might cause some anxiety. He ultimately, by moving there, though, it caused a lot of disruption in the family. And that led to him starting to feel some of that anxiety, feeling that lack of safety in the home. That came to a head when he was involved in a DARE program through his school. And if you don't know what DARE was a program in the 80s and 90s that would come into the schools, and they would teach kids about drugs to try and keep them off of drugs, tell them about the risks, tell them, about your brain is essentially a cracked open egg that's frying on a skillet. And this is your brain on drugs. Any questions, that kind of thing. And clearly with the lack of drugs in our society right now, that program worked like a charm. I'm just kidding. It really didn't. But I digress. Anyway, that program, I guess, at that time and in that scenario, gave Charlie his first anxiety attacks. And that's when he started experiencing it. And I can definitely relate to that. I can relate to those early experiences, though my experiences with panic attacks happened later in life in college. And when they happened, they tended to be around things that were not, shall we say, rational. For me, it was hypochondria. I thought I had, various forms of cancer or things like that would give me this intense panic and irrational panic. And so I can relate to that type of anxiety attack. For Charlie, though, he grew up with a sense of self-awareness. And this is important. The sense of self-awareness that even though he didn't really know what was happening to him with this anxiety, that he was asking the right set of questions. That was something that I never did. I went down a very dark path of addiction and alcoholism. This is not a comparison sort of thing. The only reason I'm mentioning this is because many people that go down the path of anxiety or mental health issues, feel very isolated. They feel very alone. And there's many ways in which they react to that. And some lean into substances and toxic behaviors. And that was something that I did. And I think that the important message that I want to convey through this is that through self-awareness, through being aware, and through recognizing we're not alone, and through asking the right kinds of questions, we can avoid the decades of trauma and traumatic experiences that may affect us due to our mental health crises. And, through Charlie's experience, through a course that he went through in college, that was really a course about what it's like to be a human. He learned the right to ask the right kind of questions. He learned about his identity a little bit more. He learned his point of view, which is what he called it. It was a point of view and it wasn't a very positive point of view, but it was a point of view that gave him a significant amount of self-awareness. It was that others don't want me. And that was basically a reasoning behind all of the activities that he would start to do alone or on an individual basis, why he got really good at tennis, why he pursued entrepreneurship instead of going into a company. But it was this idea, and that understanding at least gave him the ability to start rising above it and start asking the right questions to get the right answers. And it set him on a journey that took him to 60 different countries, through learning how to meditate in Japan and Thailand and all of these other places, and even sitting in a discourse with the Dalai Lama and learning a lot about these kinds of things, and starting his early businesses. And it was through those early businesses that you realized that pushing on your passion, because that business was ultimately pushing on a passion, the anxiety through doing that, the anxiety melted away. And that was a pretty impactful moment of that experience and starting that business. And to that end, a lot of that starting of those businesses revolved around adventure and revolved around some of his passions, which included getting outside. And Charlie had said that adventure really strips you away the stimulus that exists in our daily lives, which helps to alleviate the anxiety. I say that adventure is the antidote to anxiety, because it puts us outside of our comfort zone just enough to show us that our fears are not as powerful as our passions, and that we can really help to rise above them by putting ourselves in an environment that puts us just outside of our comfort zone, that puts us out in nature, that takes away the stimulus and just puts us on our own or with a group of friends. And that's one of the things that has led Charlie down a path of learning about his own mental health and what works for him, and where he's evolving his own mental health journey now to help 1 million people by 2030. What he does to help alleviate some of the anxiety that exists in his life now is he has a series of daily routines, and some of the strategic elements of how he gets over anxiety are pretty important too. So the first step is, if he's in that muck, or the morass as he calls it, his brain chemistry is off, or our brain chemistry is off when we're in the midst of it, when we're stuck in the morass. So the first step is to get that brain chemistry back aligned with a more empowering way. The way we do that is through exercise, through movement. Movement is how we can change our brain chemistry. That's one of the first ways. So getting ourselves out of ourselves through exercise would be the first step. And the second part, which was really important to him, was a really important point that he put forward, is that we tend to feel anxious or we tend to feel depressed when we're more focused on ourselves, and when we're internally focused on ourselves. And that's really, really hard to get out of, because it's a downward spiral when we get into that, depression of we tend to lean more into ourselves. And the way to get out of that is the way we just talked about, which is to get out, to start moving, to change that brain chemistry. And then the second part of that is to really expand our focus from not just ourselves, but to push it out into others, to think of others, to support others, to help others, to serve others, and to expand it out to our family, to our greater community, to the world. The bigger the problem, the bigger the consciousness. The bigger the problem that we're trying to solve, the bigger the consciousness. That's one of the things he said, and that's one of the lessons he learned early on in his entrepreneurship. That's really the important element of how we get beyond our own anxieties, our own depression, to get outside of ourselves. These lessons are taught not just by Charlie, but by Tony Robbins, by all of the greatest minds in the world are telling us these kinds of things in terms of personal development. Or the biggest growth happens when we're serving the world. So his day starts really, so serving is the way. And then of course, getting into gratitude exercise is another path toward helping that. He says he gets with his wife all the time, and when he feels like he's in that morass, he will ask her, or she'll ask him, all right, give me 10 things you're grateful for. and they'll have to struggle through it to find the gratitude. But once they do, it shifts their focus. And finally, meditation was an important element to him as far as his daily practices. He will get into a cold plunge first thing in the morning, which I agree with is completely powerful. And I know everybody here who might be listening thinks it's crazy to jump into a cold body of water first thing in the morning. It does not sound like fun. And even to me right now, it doesn't sound like fun. But let me tell you, nothing will shift your mindset more than jumping into a cold body of water. That will shift your mindset and your mentality, and it will take you out of any funk that you're in, just like that. It will do that. So he starts with that cold plunge. Then he moves into 20 or 30 minutes of meditation. These are ways not to treat that anxiety in the moment, but to help prevent it over time. The maintenance, the things that we need to do on a daily basis. One of the other important parts that he talked about to helping in that preventative model of helping with mental health is a good night's sleep. He said that your day should start the night before with a good night's rest. 7 to 8 hours of sleep or decent sleep is key to mental health. That's key to mental health. And so those are kind of the steps that he takes to take care of his mental health now. And so after we talked about that, we started getting a lot into his entrepreneurship and some of the businesses he started. Because one of the things I noticed that was really, really, really neat about Charlie and the companies that he has is that not only are the companies that he the companies that he has successful, not only are they successful from a financial standpoint, they are successful from an impact standpoint. He is demonstrating that you can be an entrepreneur and make an impact on the world. And his way of doing that with Acris Capital, which is the company that he owns and runs right now with his partners, is to help acquire affordable housing and keep them accessible to the working class families that are in the neighborhoods that they're purchasing in. And that's very, very important because many entrepreneurs might be looking at those neighborhoods and buying them simply for the cash flow, the potential cash flow they might earn by building up the neighborhood or turning it into a different class of neighborhood than it is, that's not as affordable to the people that live there, and basically forcing them out. But in this model, what's so impactful about it is that it keeps that housing affordable for people, because he recognizes that affordable housing is one of our biggest issues in the world right now, especially in the United States, but in the world. That's what he's working on now. And of course, as he's developing that, he's developing his plan to help 1 million people with mental health over the course of the next now 7 years until 2030. So I'm excited to follow him along on that journey. And if you want to get a hold of him, I will have his email and his Calendly in the show notes of this episode. But you can definitely reach him through Acris Capital and reach out to him. He's made that offer. He wants to learn more about you and your journey. He wants to tell you more, give you more of the tools of how to rise above fear and anxiety to achieve your own greatness. So follow him, reach out to him, look for him on the socials, and listen to the episode, because it was a great interview, and he's a good friend. And I'm excited to see where he goes in the world. And until next time, thanks for joining us on this recap episode of Flow Over Fear. We'll see you next time. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Flow Over Fear podcast. If you'd like to learn more about getting into flow and learn the foundations of flow, I have a free video series on my website at www.adamcliffordhill.com called The Foundations of Flow. Feel free to go there and download it and start your journey to rising above fear and achieving greater flow in your life. And if you like this episode, and I'm guessing you did if you stuck around for this long, then please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, and you will receive notifications when I have new interviews, new recaps, and new trainings that pop up on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us.